You can try to convince me otherwise, but the Joplin tornado is by far one of the scariest, most disturbing, and deadly tornadoes to ever exist. And this is for multiple reasons. I mean, starting with the fact that 161 people died within 38 minutes. But then you have stories like Will Norton, the 18-year-old boy who had just graduated high school who was sucked out of the sunroof of his dad's car as the tornado hit. His dad was holding onto Will's legs so tight to try and save him that he broke his arm in the process. Will, along with many other people, disappeared for weeks after this deadly EF5 tornado struck. And knowing that some of the survivors contracted a flesh-eating bacteria just from the tornado is literally horrifying to think about. And not to mention the butterfly people that numerous children saw as the tornado struck, which is creepy all in itself. So again, you can say whatever you want, but the Joplin tornado is what nightmares are made of. So let's talk about it. Joplin tornado is one of those disasters that you almost don't want to think about because the details feel too disturbing to actually be real. On May 22nd, 2011, an EF5 tornado dropped out of the sky and carved a 22-mile path straight through the city of Joplin, Missouri. The wind was blowing and screaming well over 200 miles per hour as if the storm itself was hunting. At the time it finally lifted, entire neighborhoods were shredded into splinters. And the terrifying part is how quickly it all happened. In just 38 minutes, entire blocks were wiped out, and 161 people never made it out alive. It's the kind of event that leaves you wondering how something so massive and violent can appear out of a normal-looking sky without warning and just take everything. The Joplin tornado is the 7th deadliest tornado in US history, and what makes it even more horrifying is its classification, an EF5, which is the highest rating on the enhanced Fujita scale. EF5 tornadoes are so violent that their winds exceed 200 miles per hour, powerful enough to level well-built homes, twist metal, and wipe entire neighborhoods off the map. These types of tornadoes don't just damage cities, they pretty much erase them. Exactly what it did. That day, when it seemed like Joplin was going to get a tornado, the community didn't really panic because that's what they're used to. The tornado warnings blared throughout the city, and just 24 minutes later, the Joplin tornado struck down. So this was a really short time frame that people had to work with to find shelter. What makes this tornado so particularly disturbing is that it was rain-wrapped, meaning that it was completely hidden until it was already right in front of them. People didn't see a funnel, just a wall of darkness, and then in an instant, the world around them was being shredded apart. By the time anyone realized what was happening, the tornado was already there, swallowing everything in its path, including them. Major hospitals were destroyed, even Joplin High School. More than 1,000 people were injured on top of the fatalities. 9,200 people were displaced, and over 4,000 homes and businesses were just no longer there. I think I read that the total economic cost was over $2 billion. Steel buildings that once stood tall were now rolled up like paper. Several trees were debarked, which is a super unsettling thing to see. And then semi-trucks were then wrapped around them. This is all very tragic, but then you start to hear some of the stories that the victims and survivors actually went through, like the Greenbrier nursing home. It was leveled in seconds, and that alone killed 21 people. Then came a local Pizza Hut that was right in the eye of the storm. The store manager, Christopher Lucas, is a hero in all regards, because he shoved all 4 of his employees and the 15 customers that were in his store into a walk-in freezer. But once inside, the door wouldn't stay closed, so Christopher tied it shut with a bungee cord that was wrapped around his arm. But sadly, he could only hold on for so long. Eventually, Christopher was sucked out into the tornado where he died. And I think the story that really sticks out the most to me when thinking about the Joplin tornado is what happened to Will Norton. Will was 18 years old when the tornado struck, and he, along with his classmates at Joplin High School, had just graduated. Thankfully, the ceremony wasn't actually in Joplin High School because that was leveled. The ceremony was held at a local university, and at first, everyone was so happy, as they should be graduating high school. Will in particular was super happy because he had just been accepted into Chapman's College of Film and Media Arts. Will was a very talented kid who loved Kat Von D, and he was a YouTuber. He filmed his everyday life, but he really loved to post comedy skits. He had so much potential and honestly had a really bright future ahead of him. But just as he was leaving his high school graduation ceremony, the tornado touched down. Right before he had tweeted, quote, "I just graduated high school," end quote. But not long after, he would become one of the first fatalities of the Joplin tornado. As Will and his dad were leaving the ceremony, he was on the phone with with his mom and sister when they heard the tornado strike their car. Suddenly, they were right in the middle of this massive multi-vortex tornado, and even though they were both wearing their seatbelts, the tornado overcame them. Will was sucked out of the sunroof of the car, and his dad was holding onto his legs so tight to try and save him that he broke his arm in the process. All they could hear was the strong wind from the tornado and the sound of his dad praying very loudly, and then in an instant, Will was gone. He had been sucked out of the car, where his body was then thrown into a nearby pond. His dad suffered severe injuries and was later taken to the hospital, and Will was then lost in the aftermath, as were many people. After the tornado was over, the damage to the city was unreal, and it left finding victims really hard because of all the debris. Will was eventually found 10 days later in that same pond, but sadly he was deceased. After he died, Kat Von D made a drawing in his honor, and not only a baseball field was named after him, but he also had one of the highest scholarships at Chapman University named after him as well. He was so young, literally 18 years old, and only minutes had passed since he graduated high school. His whole life ahead of him just gone in an instant. It's just heartbreaking. According to his friends and family, Will could make anyone laugh even in the toughest of situations. Not long before he died, he uploaded a video to his YouTube channel saying that he almost died after getting caught in a really bad thunderstorm. It's just sad that he went on to pass in a nearly identical situation not long after that post was made. This is the last photo of him, which was taken at his high school graduation just minutes before he died. Survivors of the tornado had to witness dead bodies just lying on the streets, and some even had to carry deceased children to their families. Since so many people died all at once, a temporary morgue was set up at a local university in Joplin. Semi-trucks with refrigerators were brought in to help store and process the bodies for identification, which was a really hard process because most of the victims were either unrecognizable or just not intact because of the extreme trauma from the tornado. Joplin has largely rebuilt since then, but it has never been the same. 18 people died by suicide following the devastating tornado, and domestic violence grew in the year following the disaster. A good portion of the community suffered from PTSD and depression as well. What's even scarier is that some people survived this horrific natural disaster only to contract a rare and aggressive fungal infection called mucormycosis. This is a flesh-eating fungus that was caused by fungus from the soil that was spread by the tornado's debris. This alone killed 5 people and seriously injured several more, which is super scary to have to live through. The last thing that I want to talk about when it comes to the Joplin tornado is the butterfly people. During the chaos of the Joplin tornado, multiple children claim to have seen butterfly people, tall, winged, humanoid creatures, glowing through the rain-wrapped darkness, shielding them as the world tore apart around them. No adults saw anything, just several different kids insisting those soft, shimmering wings blocked the wind and saved them when nothing else could. It wasn't until the tornado passed that these similar stories, all from different kids who didn't even know each other, started to spread. Now the town is filled with butterfly murals, bright and gentle on the surface, but when you pass them, especially as the sun starts to set, there's a quiet unease, as if those wings aren't just painted memories, but remnants of something that was there that night, something beautiful and unbearably sad that never entirely left. Some specialists say that this phenomenon was actually just the result of mass hysteria, that the kids who saw these butterfly people were all of a sudden living through something so horrific that their minds made them up as a way to protect them from what they were actively seeing. Whatever it was, it's scary, but also beautiful. I want to know what you guys think about the butterfly people. I'm super curious, especially if you lived in Joplin during this tornado.